views and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not reflect the views or endorsement of any entity. Nothing being said on this podcast should be considered as investment advice.
Let's go, guys. Welcome to 100 Proof. We got a nice little live audience here. You don't know how many people are here. It's a lot. It's hundreds and hundreds of people. No, we're having fun. This is 100 Proof. This is our first one that's live here in the audience. We've got a fun show here. We've got Kevin, we've got Derek, and special guest, Day One Proof Collective member and just rock star, Jordan Lyall. Everyone say, yo, what's up, what's up? And yes, Trey, I do have my mimosas. Let's go.
And we've got hair, too.
What?
We have hair.
And hair, no hats.
No Mal forced us not to wear hats today, so Derek and I are pissed.
And then he wore a hat.
He wore a hat, but then he took it off.
Okay.
So that was nice of him. We actually do have hair. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We said we started a little bit late because we said we were gonna, the website's at the wrong time for people to show up.
Sorry,
it was really supposed to be 9:30, not 10 o'clock. But it's our beta first live event like this, so that's cool. And of course, we have Sam joining us remotely, who's our director of research. Sam, you should appear here. Oh, there you are.
There he is.
There he is.
The man with the math.
Whoa. Let's go. Hey, everybody, what's going on?
Love having you up here on the screen. This is kind of amazing. It never gets old. It's only been a couple times, but it's pretty awesome having you sitting over our shoulder. All right, so this is going to be a crazy show. We have Snowfro joining us as well. He's going to be joining us remotely to talk about your latest project that you guys worked on together.
Yeah, that's it. Art and craft.
Yeah, so awesome.
We've been geeking out about it all morning, so I'm excited to take that conversation and start translating it for folks because it's been a lot of fun to get into some of the nitty-gritty details.
And there's a lot behind the scenes that people need to know what's going on here. And the good news is it's still open for mint, and it will be for a long time.
We think it'll be open for a very long time. We're talking years, potentially. The whole goal is to just allow anyone to mint who wants to mint.
Love that. Well, we'll get into that in just a little bit. We're also going to be talking about NFT royalties. That obviously is a really hot topic still, turns out. And then what else? Oh, yes. Sign up for our newsletter. We have something new called Signal. Well, two things. Obviously, our podcast you can find at, I always want to say Twitter still. It's still twitter.com/proof podcast. X.com still works, but it forwards. Yeah, /proof podcasts, and that is where you can turn on the subscribe, and then you will get just the content, just the videos, none of the other chatter. And then also Signal. Amanda, why don't you tell us about Signal a little bit?
Signal's been a lot of fun. Shout out to Mao for coaching me and making me, camera ready. But it's been a lot of fun. Me and Dalton, aka War Daddy, we kind of work on this together. He does all the written stuff, and I do the video. And so it's like a two-parter. It's a video newsletter and a regular newsletter. It goes in your inbox every Thursday morning, and we premiere the video every Thursday morning on Twitter. It's been a lot of fun. It's like, hey, if you haven't been able to catch up on everything that's going on at Proof, it's nice and easy. Here's a nice little, 3-minute video. So I'm happy everyone's been enjoying it. I've just been having a lot of fun, spinning in my chair, throwing books around on these videos. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. So that people can sign up for that at signal.proof.xyz.
Yes.
Like you said, it's once a week, which is awesome. This isn't one of those newsletters where we start sending you other promotional. I hate when you sign up and you're like, now I'm getting 10 newsletters a week. So This is just the good stuff, the best content, signal.proof.xyz. All right, let's see. We have some international meetups coming. We're celebrating our Diamond Exhibition artists. So if you are international, check out events.proof.xyz and you can get all the dates and details there. Mal, you moved the cameras on me. Which camera am I supposed to be looking at? I always get this one here. Okay, sweet. Oh, no, this one now. All right. We're going to get lights at some point to help direct us. Shall we kick it off?
Let's do it. Let's jump into it.
You want to start off with the first story?
So you and I had a really interesting conversation last week about the future of royalties in our space. It's a topic that seems to continue to it's like a lightning rod. Like everyone has a view on how we should be thinking about royalties, how we should be thinking about royalties for PFPs, how should we think about royalties for generative art and one-of-ones, how we should think about it for membership passes and other sorts of objects. We've got Sam with us today.
Yes.
And Sam didn't get a chance to share any of his opinions last week. It would be awesome to maybe kick off the conversation with Sam from kind of more of an analytics view, how he's thinking about royalties and the state of play here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of funny as someone who looks at the data all the time, because you get these periods where royalties effectively just go down to zero, and they go down to zero for like 4 or 5 months. And then OpenSea makes an announcement that they're moving royalties from 0.5% to 0%, or something like that. That's basically irrelevant for actual royalties. And the whole world goes crazy. And I just feel like this trend has been happening for the past 6 months, where royalties have been doing this. Like, that's the world we live in. And then there's an announcement that doesn't actually, I mean, it moves the needle in certain niche cases, but it doesn't on the big picture make that big a difference, but it just resurfaces all this energy around this issue. So from a data perspective, this move has already happened. Bored Ape Yacht Club, the average royalty paid, even though they suggest 2.5%, and the exchanges say the minimum is 0.5%, the average royalty paid is 0.03%. So this has already been the reality for a very long time. I think that at the end of the day, and I think that you can have one or the other. You can either create a very, very walled off garden where you block basically every single exchange at this point, and enforce royalties, or all exchanges but one. And maybe that's Blur, maybe that's your own platform. Like, there are a couple options, and I think that gets away from what a lot of people see as kind of some of the benefits of NFTs, or, so you can block off everything, or you have to move on to different models where required royalties aren't embedded in what you're doing. And those are the options. And I think people really dislike both of them. But I think that's kind of where we're at right now.
I got a question for you. I don't know if you had a chance to see earlier this week, I think it was Daniel, the CEO of Yuga, was on Rug Radio with Farouk and those guys. And the question came up after the letter that they published and penned, essentially, it vocalizing dissent for the OpenSea decision. A question came up on that podcast, or that Twitter Spaces, asking if Yuga would consider creating their own marketplace and controlling the experience by which these objects are bought and sold in the future. He gave a kind of a mysterious answer. It was more like the can't say at this time, or more of like the no comment type response. But I'm curious, from your vantage point, the pros and cons of Yuga doing something like that, and whether or not you've got a dial or an opinion on how they may navigate those waters moving forward.
I mean, I think the big con is that you would have to basically block every single exchange. And right now, so much of the liquidity goes to Blur. Blur is like something like 80% of their market share. It goes to OpenSea. It goes to, increasingly, looks rare next to Y to our valid options. So I think like the downside is that you'd literally just remove all the people who kind of spend time on those platforms, which are kind of like central meeting points for people in the space. If the goal is to enforce royalties, you just have to block all of those. So that's the clear downside. The other thing is, there are still ways that people could send NFTs back and forth, and you'd have to make that very difficult to make royalties enforceable. So I think there are a lot of headwinds that would go with that, and do you really want to remove the main traffic sources from people who can buy your NFTs? So that seems like the big downside. The upside is, we saw that, I think, Larva Labs website has been the hub of CryptoPunk activity for a very long time. And so we've seen that it can work in individual cases. And, if what you care about most is royalty enforcement, then, perhaps there are some options where you create a total walled off garden where you really remove the broader ecosystem from trading your NFTs. And maybe that's a possibility. But do you agree with that, Derek? Or what do you kind of see as do you think that falls in line with how it is?
Yeah, I think you're nailing the trade-offs. I want to hear, Kevin, if you've had a chance to think about this over the last week and whether your views have evolved. And I definitely want to hear how Jordan is thinking about this over on the Prohibition side. But maybe you kick us off. And any insights or thoughts that you've had over the last week, just like thinking through this a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I certainly believe that, and I've heard from a bunch of artists that they do want this enabled. Like they would like to have a continual revenue stream of some sort. And one of the generative artists that I was speaking with, I don't know if you care that I'd say this. Well, he won't care. He works at Proof. It's Raven, Art Blocks artist. He's awesome. He had a really good point to me, which is that, Xcopy has this whole thing where he said it holds them back and sell them, right? And there's downsides to that. He wasn't talking about this. This is just my take on this, and I'll get to what he said. But there's downsides to that because if you're a project or an artist and you're selling into that, all of a sudden that's a signal of some type. And so your other collectors might get a little shaky and say, wait, is this the top? Why is the artist selling right now? Why is if Moonbirds went out and dropped 50 birds today and sold them, people would be like, oh shit, like they think it's the top, we're out, right? And so it can really disrupt the kind of vibes of what's going on with the project. I think that's a little more challenging. That's a great point.
Whatever the time frame is, it sells a certain number of tokens where it's automated. The whole community knows, oh, at this time, these are going to sell at floor price.
Yeah, see, that would be the way to do it, because then this is how stock sales work in public markets, right? Like you'll have a filing with the SEC, and it'll be, Elon Musk says, I'm going to sell X number of shares on these dates, right? And so it's not just some random drop of, so that would have to be the way that it's done. But I would say, the thing is that if you really want to cheat the system, the beauty of the programmability of smart contracts is there's always a way around it, right? Like, for example, let's just say there's these really walled off gardens. Like, okay, you've got this very unique artist, and it's worth 50 ETH, and we can only trade it through the walled off garden. Well, we can send it to other wallets, right? Because no one would go along with something that prevented that. So I can just write a smart contract that says, take in this ETH, lock it up, and when I see this NFT hit this other wallet, release the ETH to this other person, right? And that's no wrapping required.
Yep.
All they have to do is send it, and it's all provable in the smart contract, and it releases the ETH and escapes all of the royalties, right? And so that's a contract that can be written in a day, like a half a day. So there's always ways to cheat the system here. So there's never going to be a perfect, elegant solution that I can think of.
Yeah, what do you think, Jordan? I'm curious and I'm excited to get into the Prohibition stuff and talk a little bit more about arts and crafts, but maybe more globally speaking, for the artists that are doing work on Prohibition, how are you thinking about this problem?
Yeah, it's something I've been thinking about for a long, long time. 2017, I minted CryptoKitties, so I've seen the evolution of NFTs and royalties, and went through the one-of-one art and super rare to generative art. At first, for the first few years, it was me as a collector having to think about royalties. Then it was the platform perspective, the marketplace. We'll get into Prohibition.art. Thinking about, okay, how do we make sure our artists are getting royalties? And then now, as of yesterday, I'm a creator. So now I have royalties coming to me potentially if people pay their royalties. So it's an interesting perspective, and I think it's constantly changing in my head. Royalties is one of the things that we thought was kind of a given, in the early days. It was just like, okay, we love NFTs because it's, provably unique on chain. There's a market for these things. They can trade at any time. And then artists get to make a living selling these things. Well, now it's like, well, technically, we've kind of just been trusting each other up until now.
Yeah.
And now certain platforms have made that really, really easy. I don't fault those platforms. A lot of people have, strong opinions and are angry at some of these platforms, but we kind of, as a space, as an industry, we kind of needed to do this. We kind of needed to go through this. I think there won't be an NFT bull market until we figure this out. Like, a bull market's promised to nobody. I think a lot of people think that, okay, it's just a matter of time, the market cycle, but unless we figure out how to grow sustainably, it's not promised to anybody.
Yeah.
We got to figure it out. I don't have all the answers. At Prohibition.art is the platform we launched last month. It's an open generative art platform, meaning anybody can release a project there. It is on a layer 2. It's on Arbitrum, so it's super quick, super easy, really cheap gas prices, several cents to mint something. And it's powered by Artblock's engine. We put a premium on the user experience. We spent majority of our development time on the artist experience. What's the flow? We're built on Artblock's engine. We're the first partner to really redesign that artist portal, that artist flow.
Mm-hmm.
Our vision is to onboard as many artists as we can as possible. It's my belief that more people should think of themselves as artists, and I'm living proof because I just launched something. But it would be kind of disingenuous to say, hey, we're all about the artist. Here are all these awesome tools. Let us help you build your community, but then try to sidestep royalties. So obviously, it's something, our built-in secondary marketplace honors royalties. But I think it's going to be a combination of innovation and transparency as an industry. I always say space. I think that gets overused. It's a weird word to use, but we'll kind of say it. As a space, we need to be, as we have been the last few years, totally transparent and honest with each other, from marketplace to artist to collector. And we need to be innovating. And maybe some of that is new EIPs to invent, and new, we're going to change Ethereum potentially based on some of these decisions that we make.
Can I ask you a question about your platform specifically?
Yeah.
Like, one of the things on artist royalties that I believe we could improve on, like today, if we really wanted to, is there's a few things where ideally what you want is, given that people can sidestep this, that they can get around it, you want to make it so that when they consider the value proposition, they think to themselves, it's not worth my time to sidestep this. It's not worth my time to go through one of these. So, obviously the no-brainer is lowering the percentage. I think the days of 10% back to the artist on every sale are dead, right? Yeah. And so getting that down to something that, maybe it's 2%, maybe it's 2.5%, something where the artist still gets paid, but it's not crazy. And then flipping it and saying, hey, why on my way out am I paying fees as a seller? Maybe the buyer should be paying these fees. And another thing would be, hey, I'm down. This NFT collection is down 75%. Why are we charging fees at all to anyone, right? Yeah. Like, why not program that into let that be, check boxes that the artist can select in Prohibition? Is that something you've considered?
It's something we're thinking about for sure. There's as we're new, we're just trying to gauge the situation here and talk to our artists. But we're definitely open to those types of things. I think those are some really great ideas.
Very cool.
One of the things that Jordan said that I think is quite interesting is this idea of there won't be a bull market till royalties come back. And I'm kind of two minds here. I think on the one hand, I think the industry right now has a real collector problem more than any other problem out there. Like, collectors are losing a lot of money and are down bad. And when you look at unique buyers of NFTs, that number is down a lot. So why are collectors not paying royalties? At least for this moment, it doesn't feel like the question that feels most topical to something. At the same time, though, royalties basically went to zero in October, November. And since then, the markets have basically had one of the roughest stretches in the history of NFTs. And I think that that's almost counterintuitive. There was a lot of idea that removing royalties for a collector was like removing a tax, and that prices would do well as a result. But the exact opposite has happened. Really, since November, we've done nothing but go down, even though royalties on average have gone from 5% to half of 1%. So it's been kind of an interesting thing there, where there is something about the way that things were working before that in some ways was working for the overall ecosystem as a whole, even if it didn't align with what people expected when they thought about removing a 5% kind of tax from a collector.
Do you see this as something similar to like what we did 20 years ago when everyone was cracking Photoshop and pirating songs and movies? And now we don't do that, right? Because it's so convenient. The market's matured. Maybe we've matured. Do you see something like? I know the model's quite a bit different. Do you think there's some similarities there?
I mean, for me, it all comes down to the PFP. Well, it's a good question. Like, you're right. I do have a creative, plan on Adobe now. I give them my $15, $20 a month.
So convenient.
It's so convenient, and it's not a big upfront, massive payment like it once was. Right? You spend hundreds of dollars on a piece of software. I think we'll get there. I know
So,
we got to
so
move.
subscription model is what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying that.
PFP subscription model.
Yeah, $10 a month, and you can own a Moonbird.
Yeah.
Over, like,
Or we pull it from
0%
your
You don't
interest.
pay it, it goes to dust. I like it. I'm here to, give the voice of the people. I've been reading the comments, and a lot of people have been commenting on all of this, and I think it's been really interesting. Shout out to Yenren, who says, royalties are crucial, in my opinion, from an artist perspective. So, of course, that is important. And somebody else, Atari God, says that the bigger issue than artist royalties is the 2.5% and billions of dollars that OpenSea is taking in, right? So I think from a collector perspective, I think people just want to feel like, at least if I'm going to pay money, I'm doing it directly to the artist and not necessarily to the sort of bigger conglomerate that may or may not need the money, right? And so I think there's a lot of sort of distrust in that about, bad actors in Web3 also being a bigger issue. Like, how do you sort of sort out the bad actor, rug NFTs and real artists all on the same platform on OpenSea? That makes it really quite difficult. And I also wanted to just shout out Trey Ratcliffe, who had a really good idea of like, when artists can see a ranking of their first 100 collectors by royalty, and then maybe the artist can start gifting special things to them. I think you're right. There needs to be some sort of carrot. And so I think people want it, but I think people just need to make it easier.
Yeah, that's a great point. I jumped on a call with Richard from Manifold a few days ago, and we were talking about this, and it's no surprise that they're working on more analytics tools for collectors so that they can, or for artists, so they can get in there and see what's going on, who are my best collectors, who's doing what, and allow you to do special things with those people. So that's oh wow, I just got a notification. Snowfro is on. We have Snowfro in the house.
There he is.
There he is. GM, sir.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing?
Oh, we got cut out. It's good to see you. Can you hear us?
Likewise. Yeah, I can hear you guys just fine. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Gosh, that voice in y'all's echo is intense.
It's going to. We have a live audience here, so we're actually broadcasting your voice out here to the audience as well.
And I see you on 5 different screens, including this giant wall here too. So this is great.
I really should have shaved. I feel like I would have been better prepared.
Your beard is in high definition behind us right now, so it's all good.
I'm not white.
Well, I want to start things off and say congratulations to you two.
Thank you.
I mean, this is a fantastic, very cool new idea that that has a lot of heart and soul into it, pun intended, and would love to hear kind of like, not everyone has heard the backstory here. So if we could start off there, it'd be great.
You want to kick it off?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we can go way back if you want. Maybe 10 or so years ago, I did a Kickstarter campaign. I ended up with this 3D printer, and as someone that got really excited about making stuff, I was like, well, what else can I make with this 3D printer after the things that I needed to make for the Kickstarter? So the first thing I did was just start making very basic things, and a very basic thing to do with a 3D printer is a basic block. And I realized that I could make them in different heights, and then I thought it was interesting to make a lot of them, and then I started to paint them, and then I started to glue them together, and eventually, I guess a couple of years later, I was selling because people were interested in these pretty large, like almost 4 foot wide, oftentimes 24 inches tall sculptures of these kinds of blocks. And with the extra pieces that I had initially, I would just kind of assemble these little hearts as a big Zelda nerd, which, Kevin, I know that's something close to your heart as well.
My firstborn is named Zelda.
Yeah, exactly. Like maximum Zelda. And yeah, it's something that I would take those little extra pieces initially. Eventually, I started making them more deliberately. I'd glue them together and I'd stick them on walls here and there. And one of the things that came with my firstborn was the inability to have a bunch of loose blocks and paint and glue sitting around the house. And so this is something that just kind of fell off. And that's, right around the same time that my first kid was born is the time that I got into the digital space. So there was a nice clean transition there. And I've had this project just kind of in the back of my mind for a really long time, thinking about how to automate all the colors instead of having to do it manually. And then fast forward to meeting Jordan, being just like super impressed with him as a human and just where his brain is, and he's been around for a really long time. And one thing led to another, and I asked him if he wanted to kind of work with me on making this thing come to life. And here we are today. This is something I'm just incredibly proud of. Incredibly proud to get to work with Jordan on. Incredibly proud for our entire ecosystem. Incredibly proud for Stevie and Hermit yesterday.
We're going there.
I don't want to talk about it anymore.
And I don't know, Jordan, if you want to add something to that, but yeah, it's a special moment for our ecosystem as a whole, just to have a thing that we can talk about and share in a slightly more disarming way than kind of a lot of what we do. And not that what we do already is wrong, but I'm focused on getting the word out a little bit. And I'm really excited about it.
Awesome. I think we have a little clip to play as well, right, Mal? Yeah, we have a little 30-second clip that we'd like to show you all. So let's start with that.
There cannot be too much art in the world. The more the merrier, and the more of it that's generative and micro-branded and gives everybody the ability to be an individual in a bigger family, the better.
And that's kind of the concept of one of X. If you're unique within a family, right, there's a collection. My role in this family is unique.
See what the world looks like in 10 years, but I have a feeling that there will be a decent amount of individuality, and that will be powered through the automation that's facilitated by generative art.
Just a couple of guys making hearts.
Yeah,
I love it.
Just typical Saturday.
Yeah.
Sparkling water and yeah.
Love
No
that
glitter
video.
was involved. Just let you know.
No,
Jordan,
I
know Erick talked a little bit about kind of the concept and the inspiration and the time he spent thinking about this project from a conceptual perspective. When he approached you, maybe you can chat a little bit about what it was like to get the call, the bat signal, as it were, and your thought process in partnering with Snow on this.
Yeah, never in a million years did I think I would be collaborating with the creator of the Chromie Squiggle on a project, but here we are. I've been in this space for a long time, as you mentioned. Been a builder in this space for a long time, full time, like almost 6 years now. And at first it was, okay, how do we get more people to use crypto? How do we get more people to use DEXs, and then DeFi, and then NFTs? So I've been thinking about it as a product guy, as a startup founder. How do we bring more people in? So everything that I've been doing is like with a touch of product sense and UX. And it's a lot of times just banging my head against the wall because it's really tough. It's really hard. So I'm constantly thinking about this. And, I launched a company last year. The whole goal was to kind of take NFTs to the next level. VenturePunk is the name of my company. We've launched a number of projects in the last year. Very, very grateful and thankful to have Erick write a small check and a small angel check in that pre-seed round last year. And since then, we've become closer and closer. In fact, we first met in person. I don't know if you've seen this photo, but we met in person in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, on a dog sled. We were literally paired up. We were literally paired up on a dog sled. I tweeted a few days ago. Oh, there it is on the top, and then my header.
That's so awesome.
We met for the first time.
Just a couple of guys sledding.
Just a couple dudes.
Couple guys sledding.
I was the big spoon. He was the little spoon. We got up close and personal, and it was what a way to kick off a relationship. It was a lot of fun getting to know him, and then ever since, just been bouncing ideas off of each other. I approached him with this idea of like, hey, I want to launch a generative art platform on a layer 2. I don't want to step on Artblock's toes. Is there a way we can kind of maybe do this, integrate Artblock somehow? And he's like, dude, this would be perfect for Artblock's engine. So and it's something that they've been thinking about doing, expanding to layer 2. So everything just kind of lined up of like, hey, I want an open platform on a layer 2. Now's the right time. We've had layer 2 options for a little while, but now I think is the right time for like adoption purposes. And we just decided to like skate where the collector's going and like kind of start laying out these this plan ahead of time. And I just kind of threw it out there. Hey, would you want to create a Project Zero on our platform? Obviously, he's super busy. He's got a million things going on. So, after a few days going back and forth, it's like, wow, let's collab on this. I more of a product guy, but I have enough JavaScript knowledge that I was able to kind of dig in and learn P5.js and leveraging ChatGPT to help me get it do the things I want to do. We ended up pivoting completely to 3.js and getting deep into that. It's just been a crazy experience. As a builder, as a creator, never really considered myself as an artist. But this has really unlocked like the artistic side, the creative side, and stretched me, and just couldn't be more excited and happier than these last few months. And finally, we get to reveal it. Finally, we get to show off the hard work, and people have responded pretty well to it so far.
Love it. It's a beautiful project. You can tell it's there's so many facets to this and what you can do with this in terms of like physicals. I mean, we saw that in the video. You guys were assembling some things together, but also just, typically the norm up until this point is if Snowfro touches anything, it sells out in 20 seconds. So can you tell us like what does inclusive edition mean to you?
Well, just 2 years, I think I've been spending thinking about, and I think, Jordan even probably predates me here in terms of how long he's been thinking about getting more people into this ecosystem. But it felt crazy that Art Blocks kind of took off the way that it did, just based on this idea of a hobby that I thought would be fun and interesting for a very niche group of people, of creative coders. And obviously in the first couple of years, it kind of just kind of did its own thing with the people that were in the space. But as the space has kind of like gone through cycles, and we will go through many cycles, there's this need to make sure that you're not just marketing everything to the same people over and over. Like, I'm a collector as well in this space, and I have fatigue, and a lot of us have fatigue as collectors in the ecosystem. And it felt very important that we created something that did not cause us collectors with fatigue. Obviously, like what you just said, Kevin, of like the things that I sell or that I release, kind of sell out quickly. I'm very honored that that's the case, but that's not, that's a terrifying thing. Like, it's just it's a terrifying concept. And so what does it take for me to be able to put an idea and it not sell out, so that I can spend the next 2 years going to conferences, and when someone's interested in what I have to say, whether they're in the NFT space or not, they don't know what a squiggle is or they don't know what generative art is, that I can be like, oh, check this out. It's $20. And also maybe even have like a fun IYK card that I can just mint something to, the way that they can mint a PO app. And, it doesn't cost 20 grand. It doesn't have the like strings attached I don't put any strings attached to when I mint people a squiggle, but it's like a pretty intense thing to mint. And so, the inclusive edition it's thinking, okay, what do normal product companies do? And I use the example of Lego all the time because my family is just nuts into Lego. When Lego comes out with a new car, they don't say, hey, this is only going to be available for X amount of time, or this is only going to have this many sets. They just say, here's the product. And if you think it's cool, buy it. I know it's harder with NFTs. I know it's harder with digital art, with this like kind of semi-intangible thing to have a product that fits that style, but we haven't tested that yet. And so to me, it's just important that we even test what it looks like to have a product that does not run out. And then on top of that, just because we're testing and we're experimenting, and this is all just kind of crazy, we added a physical component to it, because that can make it feel more tangible, and that can make it feel like something more interesting to a broader audience. In fact, in a dream world, and we've kind of mentioned this a couple of times in the last few days, there's a box set that comes with a paper inside that has a seed phrase in it, or some way of claiming an NFT. And, it gives you a QR code, you scan it, it takes you to the live view of the heart. It gives you the instructions on how to make it. And inside that box are a bunch of blank cubes, little paint wells for all the colors that are available for painting, a paintbrush, some glue, and you have everything that you need to be able to recreate this thing. And whether it's a 100-piece puzzle worth of time, or whether it's a 1,000-piece puzzle worth of time, depends on just the complexity and the number of colors. But I guess maybe the last thing that I want to say on this is, and maybe this goes back to the Lego idea, is that it's so weird to me, but I'm not 7 years old, but like we'll finish making a Lego set with my kids and they'll be like, can we make that again? And I'll be like, yeah, let's take it apart and we'll make it again. And they're like, no. Like we want to keep this one. We want to buy another one. And I am not okay with buying the same Lego set twice, like just at the whim of a 7-year-old. What does it look like when a product exists in the market? And I just don't think that there's a lot of, this is where generative is so valuable and so powerful. What does it look like when there's a product where like when your kids are like, hey, can we do that again? You can do that again. And it's unique every single time. And so I don't know, maybe it's like a ritual that like once a month you buy one of these box sets and once a month you make a little heart. And by the end of the year, you have 12 little cards that represent some weird esoteric digital object thing that we call an NFT, but people don't really care about, but they hold on to it because they're also not going to throw it away. What does it look like a year from then when there's some really great incentive for having a bunch of those things? I don't know. To where then that activation happens, that onboarding happens, not because they see their friends making money or because they see like some grand opportunity, but because there's like a $20 hat that they think is really cool that, you know, and I'm definitely not saying that we're going to give everybody that has these things a hat. I'm just, what does it look like? This is CMS, you know, kind of 2.0. What does it look like from a marketing perspective to create these funnels and to create these processes and these channels? So it's all up in the air. I have no idea what's going to happen. You know, Jordan and I talk about that a lot. We have no idea what to expect, but we're never going to get anywhere if we don't try. And I feel like this, to me, is breaking down all the different needs that I have as a person, as a consumer, and maybe other people have into compartments. And how do we address each of those as best as possible? And this project to me is just the best possible way that I could address each of those individual needs. And only time will tell, you know, how that works out in the end.
Erick, I'm curious, you know, when I think about the Chromie Squiggle and what it's become and what it represents and where I see it these days, like Derek has a new piece of Chromie Squiggle clothing like every other week. I feel like some random jacket or some shit that you got Chromie Squiggle made.
Have you seen the skateboard?
I got one of the skateboards.
Yeah.
I love it. It's in my office.
The skateboards are great.
It's insane. But like I'm curious, you know, with this collection, you know, obviously people can take a Chromie Squiggle they own and you're cool with them kind of putting it on a shirt. You said this is the Chromie Squiggle license for this collection as well. So is there any commercial usage? Like how that skateboard was amazing. I just saw it on the screen there for a second. How do I get one of those?
They're cool.
Well, I didn't know they were chromed out.
I was going to be doing a little activation in Marfa, so stay tuned.
Okay, we're getting off topic, but I'm curious, like how do people think about this license? What they can and can't do with it? You know, can people turn this into their brand? Like what's the license you have on this collection?
Well, I'm almost 2 years overdue on releasing this Chromie Squiggle license. And it's essentially the exact same thing as an NFT license with one little caveat, which says the NFT license says that you can commercialize a product using an NFT, and there's restrictions on how you can commercialize it, up to $100,000 in revenue a year without even having to approach the creator. And while I think that that's a lot of money for a lot of kind of entrepreneurs that are just going to make a fun set of shirts or hats, when the value of a single Chromie Squiggle exceeds that just in and of itself, it already feels like it's outdated. And so the Chromie Squiggle license is essentially an adaptation of the NFT license that clarifies a bunch of things that I think just were a little bit left unclear in the NFT license that was created by Dapper Labs. That license was specific to CryptoKitties and then adaptable. So it clarifies a couple stuff just for people that are unclear about what's okay, what's not okay. But on top of that, it expands the maximum threshold from 100,000 to 250,000 if the person declares their intent, if they register their intent of what they're going to do with it. And it's not required. You don't have to do it. But if you do that, what helps is like, what if you create something that I'm just not comfortable with? Like talk about, I don't know, like Speedos or something. I don't know. Like you don't want squiggle underwear. I mean, maybe we do. I don't know. That'd be pretty fun to have squiggle boxers. But, and so if I know in advance, I can be like, hey, by the way, that's fine. You have the rights within the license to do it up until this amount. But when you hit that, I will probably not be okay with this use case for this commercial use case for the technology. And I think it just helps start dialogue and get people even more pumped about the things that they're making and get me excited about things that are making, learn, maybe give people heads up and say, hey, 7 other people are making squiggle boxers right now. And so, heads up on that. I mean, it creates a dialogue, because the open-ended nature of 10,000 NFTs, and in the case of Heart and Craft, potentially much bigger, there's a lot of lack of communication. There's just a lot of uncertainty. So the Chromie Squiggle license is, again, it's just the NFT license expanding raising that floor to $250,000 if people register their use case in advance. We need to create a path for people to register, which we have not done yet. So, still have some work to do. I was going to work with SquiggleDAO on that. And, the same thing applying for Heart and Craft. I think it'd be beautiful for people to make shirts with a tiny little logo of Heart and Craft on the front or on the sleeve. I always like it a lot on the sleeve. These can probably be embroidered pretty well, even maybe with 3D, with the foam embroidery to make it look like they're 3D. There's a lot of fun stuff that we can do with these things. And I just want it to feel open for people. And talking to Jordan, he felt the same way, that we could approach the licensing that way. So there's probably more to come on that. But
Hear me still? Oh, I can hear myself. There we go. The reason why this is so cool, and I'm curious if you guys agree, is that if you think about what you want this to proliferate and get out there, and it allows the average hobbyist entrepreneur to say, just do a run of really cool buttons or really cool whatever, and they can just have fun with it. But it doesn't allow Nike to come in and make shoes, right? So it kind of protects you as an artist in that if a big brand comes along and really wants to embrace it, they can't just run with it, and you can actually have a dialogue. But it still doesn't hurt or hamper kind of the startup entrepreneur to go do something simple and fun because they're a fan.
Yeah, it's almost like the mint structure itself. It's inclusive with an eventual cap, but it's inclusive, and
I like that.
Anybody can get involved.
Yeah, so really well done. I want to, we've got the two masterminds behind the project here. I would be remiss if we didn't talk about some of the nerdy details.
Oh, yes.
I spent a lot of time last night going through some of these details. And
you minted some too, right?
I minted a few.
How many did you mint? Come on, some real talk.
I minted a lot.
Hundreds. I want to say, but before we get into this,
he's number one.
Before we get into this, I also want to say, if you guys are here and you have other questions about the project, we're gonna take some in. So just think about it, and listen to it, and then if you have any questions, we can talk, and then I'll give it to Snowfro.
Yep. Yeah. So I'll just say brilliant construction of this inclusivity. It's very clear that no detail was left untouched around that. But then there's also this very interesting, geeky, nerdy rarity structure that you've embedded into the project that I was just falling in love with. Maybe we can talk a little bit about some of these hidden gems that are sprinkled throughout this project, some of which are visual, some of which might not be as visual. I would be curious to just hear you guys talk about some of your favorites and things that you think are little Easter eggs for folks to find as they're playing with this over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the whole goal is to be inclusive. So a lot of these things will stay at that, less than $20 price point. But this sort of thing is fun, right? This is part of why we got into Squiggles, and that's kind of another chapter in the origin story. We wanted to give people that squiggle experience, the day zero minting experience. We wanted to give that to other people, and now we have that opportunity over a long period of time. So we did kind of include some features, many which have been discovered, some that are still undiscovered. But I really like the hyper. So there are some things that are unique. There are some things that are kind of like a nod, obviously, to the squiggle. Some words and features that are similar. The hyper is not immediately as identifiable as the Chromie Squiggle hyper when you look at it, but it's really, once you get in there and spin the heart in 3D, which everyone should be doing, that the image that you see is not really, it's not the thing, right? The thing is the 3D, and then we can talk about physicals, but.
How many hypers are there in total? So there's been over 12,000 minted. How many hypers do we have? Is it
just a handful? I think.
And I think Amanda, did you mint one?
Shut up.
She minted.
I minted one yesterday.
And what happened? Was your wallet compromised, or what? Did something happen there?
I don't want to say it in
No
front of
cell
Snowfro.
shaming,
Oh my
no cell
God.
shaming.
I sold
There's
it. I
36
sold it
of
last
them now.
night to some guy, maybe I don't know, guy or girl, who knows? Just some person we don't know. Who cares?
Just a basic name.
It was
Yeah, it's
basic.
basic.
Basic saw what I didn't see and stole it and bought it for me.
You should get into origami. I feel like the paper hands is real with you.
It didn't used to be. It didn't used to be. I learned.
She sold my friend tech share.
I did.
She
see
sold
that.
my friend text.
Are
She
you
sold
did
mine
you sell
too.
my friend texture?
I never bought one. But I did also sell Derek's too at
all
the same
good.
time too. Listen, this is ETH. I'm trying to stack some ETH here. It's fine. It's fine. I'm too busy. That's all. Oh,
So there's
boy. I'm
there's
embarrassed. I hate this. But
No.
I think listen,
Zero
the hypers are
shame.
amazing. It's
Zero.
fun. I have a
There's
question
zero
actually
shame,
though.
Stevie.
Thank you.
Zero
Thank you.
shame, please.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I knew
that's
he
all
would
right.
be this way. It's fine. I have a question about the signature color names. I thought they were really cool to kind of see. I mean, obviously there's like a Brian Brinkman one, but there's also some other names that I don't recognize. So I'm wondering if there's like a little history behind that.
So it's more than just the signature color. Actually, the whole color palette. And if you want to jump into one and hit the I key on your keyboard, you can bring up the color palette. So hit I and then click on mix at the top there, the mix header. Then if you hover over certain colors, you can see the color names. So these are all the cubes. There's 33 bright colors, and then there's 6 grayscale colors. Each has a name attached to it. So all the cubes in the heart have this kind of combination of all these colors. And then we had this was one of the most fun parts of this experience, is getting to name some of these colors. Snowfro has, you can talk about your background with the chromey tiles, but a lot of the same colors that he used there are also named here. And then I got to choose half or so. And then of course I had to get my own little personality and history in there. And Brinkman obviously has been just an amazing co-collaborator and artist to collect, so I had to get him in there. There's a bunch of other little, yesterday we minted on Kobe Bryant Day, so I had to squeeze Mamba as a color name in there.
Oh, amazing.
A lot of little things like that I think people will start to recognize.
This is such a fun project, you guys. Congratulations. It's so cool.
I'll also say, I've been in this space for a long time, and nothing has ever quite felt like what it was like to mint Chromie Squiggles. And I was telling Snow this morning, but for the first time in years, it actually felt like the experience had been recreated. There's no expectation of anything here. It's a brilliant visual project that you're waiting to see what comes out of the minter. There's this very geeky, nerdy Rarity structure that's still incredibly inclusive because the mint price is $20 or less. It's on a layer 2, so you're not kind of setting slow gas and waiting for something to mint overnight. It's the whole thing was just so well done, and it really felt like
also a simplicity to it as well.
Simplicity to it is just, I know how difficult it can be to create something so simple.
Yes, exactly.
And you guys just nailed this. It's just such a fun, awesome, inclusive, wonderful project.
Appreciate that, dude. Yeah, that means a lot.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
All right. Well, Snow, we know you have other things. You had a very busy day. As every time we chat, it takes weeks for us to even have a 5-minute conversation because you're a very busy person. So we want to let you get back to it. Any last comments or anything that you'd like to add about the project?
No, I'm just express my gratitude for Jordan and his team and the Engine team for kind of allowing this to happen and put this together, and for the collectors, in general, there's 65,000 allow listing isn't the right word. There's 65,000 wallets eligible for a free mint here, and
including proof holders.
Wow.
Including proof holders, and it's just something that's really important to us to say thank you. I know that people might want a more than a $20 thing as a thank you for participating, but it's just a really nice way for us to just say thank you, and we're very grateful.
Oh, thank you for that. That's amazing.
Hey, Snowfro, we have a couple questions here from the live audience. Do you have time for just like 1 or 2 questions?
Sure.
Let's go. Is that your original Game Boy? I guess in the back.
And were you
then,
inspired by Tetris?
Inspired by Tetris in general for the hearts?
I mean, I'm inspired by 8-bit stuff, period.
8-bit
So
stuff,
Tetris, sure. But yeah, that's an old Game Boy. In fact, there's this artist on our blocks that created this really fun cartridge for me that uses my CryptoPunk, and I mean, it's pretty. I'll have to share it some other time because I
Amazing.
think the battery died because my kids just sit there and watch it all the time. But yeah, big inspired from NES. Played a lot of video games, and then also just as a, you know, spending time with tile. These little blocks, like there's only so small you can make individual blocks when you're dealing with tile, and so pixels have always been very large for me, whereas in the tech world, pixels tend to be tiny. So there's a lot of kind of like
Very
things
cool.
that come together.
That's awesome.
Snowfro, is it your birthday?
Oh man, is that Benny?
Is it your birthday today?
Was that Benny?
No.
No?
Yeah, did Benny? So
Somebody in the
Benny
chat
wished
said,
me a happy-
tell Snowfro happy birthday.
Oh my God.
Gosh. Yeah, no,
Oh.
Is that
my
true?
birthday's on May
Ooh.
6th.
What?
May 6th is my birthday.
It's a
Officially.
running gag.
Oh, it's a running
okay.
gag.
I'm
Okay.
going to put it on my Twitter profile.
That's amazing. Okay, we have one more
That's funny.
audience question, yeah, and then
Do you have one more?
we'll let him go.
No.
No?
Well,
I think they're
wanna
just ready to
shout out-
mint.
I want to shout out Grant Yoon in the audience. He's here on YouTube.
Oh,
He's
what's up,
listening,
Grant?
enjoying
That's
all
amazing.
the conversations. Shout out to you, Grant.
Awesome.
We didn't talk too much about the physical, just the whole kind of the other half of the project is to mint the NFT and then go build the physical heart and craft. Each NFT on chain comes with instructions, literally the file you need to send to your 3D printer to make these beautiful babies. It's fun. You know, the process is fun. I got to go to his house in Houston a couple weeks ago. You saw some of the video. It was just so amazing just to get together and create in person. So many people will do it themselves, but I encourage people to get together. And
We're starting to see a ton pop up. We have a member of the audience who did it last night. I've been
you're
seeing,
right.
I've been
Yeah,
seeing them
Micah.
all pop up on the internet. It's here we're bringing it up right now. Mal's got one.
Oh,
gonna be-
amazing.
We're
TV
starting
show
to
that
see
went
more.
off.
Yeah, we're,
That is
we're
so
seeing,
cool.
We're seeing them trickle
So
in.
cool.
You got to get the right camera angle. I think where it's blown out on there. If you can,
Is that your username, 3MFer? I love
So he
it.
signed
Shout
his-
out to
his-
this guy.
Shout out to 3MFer.
There we go.
That's cool.
It's still kind of
Yeah, it's kind of blown
I guess,
out a little
right?
bit, but
Yeah.
it does have some beautiful colors, so you really can't see it over the video stream. But it is.
I was just telling
Yeah.
Jordan that we
That's
need to do a
amazing.
meetup here at Foundry for Prohibition community members.
Oh,
with
100%.
a
Let's
3D
do it.
printer, right?
Let's do it.
So
Let's
we
get a
can
couple
some of
3D
those?
printers in and do it.
Let's
great
go.
idea.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
that sounds great. Awesome. Well, Snow, we'll let you go. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. You're welcome back anytime and you'd like. And thanks again for hooking up the Proof community with these and you guys working on this project together and always inspiring us in new directions, which I'd say is what this space needs, especially at this time, you know.
What else are we
Well,
going to
thank
do?
you
Let's
guys.
just build fun stuff. Yeah.
And we'll see you at Marfa. I'm going to be out there
Yeah,
for
we'll see
that.
you, Marfa. And have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Jordan, thanks for driving out there, and it's really nice to see you guys. Sorry I couldn't be there in person.
All good.
Take care, man.
Well, take care.
All right. Bye.
That was awesome.
He's a man.
He is the man. One question for you about Prohibition. I was curious about, right now you're on Arbitrum, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the decision you made probably, 6 months ago or so?
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think about other layer twos? Like, do you see this as a platform that extends? Because base is all the hotness right now, of course, out of nowhere, but not out of nowhere, but do you see this as something where you're just going to turn on other layer twos and let people choose?
Arbitrum made a lot of sense, and we talked to everybody. Originally, Arbitrum was always the platform in my mind, maybe with a 10% chance of finding somebody else. But we talked to everybody. We put through the due diligence, talked to Base. There was a combination of like the number of active wallets, total value locked on the platform, the community, the existing developers, the support, the resources, and then vibes.
And the bridging.
And the bridging,
Because the
that's
bridging
a
is
big deal.
seamless.
And
It's
the
a big
support
deal.
for we use Reservoir for our secondary market, so has to be supported by some of these other partners and vendors. And right now it's the right place. There hasn't been a lot of art on Arbitrum, so we can kind of own that, carve that out for a little bit. The longer term vision, and of course we'll continue to evaluate and talk to collectors and artists, but we want to be where collectors and artists are. So there is an opportunity for us to be multi-chain or omni-chain if you're thinking about it that way. And maybe, you dig under the hood and you can, those of us that care about this sort of thing know exactly which blockchain it's sitting on. But imagine if you can pay with any asset on any chain and your NFT is sitting on any asset or, on any chain. I don't know for sure, but I think that's probably where this goes in the course of a couple of years.
Crazy. So you're going to Tezos next, basically, is what you said.
All. No, I love Tezos. I love to collect on Tezos.
So you're more of a Solana guy.
I'm more of an EVM Ethereum.
I'm just trying to figure out what chain you're going to next. No, this is.
It'll probably be related to Ethereum EVM compatible.
Okay, EVM. Yeah, I mean it's easiest for you, right?
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. Sam, how many hearts have you minted? Nope, we can't hear you.
Can neither confirm.
He's minting
Sorry
right now.
about that. Sorry, but yeah, I was about to mint my first. I have not yet minted one, but I'm inspired. So let's chat next time.
Awesome. All right. I think that's it for the show. Yeah, we had a great show. Anything else you'd like to add? Any other last minute interesting tidbits?
We mentioned that there are a bunch of communities, including Proof.
What other communities are eligible?
If you've ever minted an art blocks, if you've ever held an art blocks as of if you held an art blocks NFT at the snapshot, which was a couple days ago, then you're on the free mint list. So art blocks engine partners, Proof pass holders, a lot of the projects that I've created in the past, like the raccoons and the levels and the meme stuff. There's like 8,000 wallets holding original meme, which is my first project from 3 years ago. Just a bunch of communities that have been important to us, both Erick and I.
Where is that list, by the way? Did you tweet it out or?
We tweeted out the list of the communities, and we can also publish the list of individual wallets. But because so many of these NFTs are being held in a vault, we're also enabling support for Delegate. So pretty soon you'll be able to just log in with your wallet that's pointed to your Delegate vault. These things are, $16, $17. So we ask that you do not, connect your cold storage to this just to mint this thing. So that's where Delegate comes in. But there are a lot of people, there's only been a few thousand of these freebie mint lists out of 65,000 individual wallets on all those lists.
Yeah, the majority of the mints that have been produced so far, I think something like 80% were purchased.
Yeah.
Not minted for free.
And a lot of people are kind of surprised to see that when they first connect their wallet, they've got a free one first. So you do have to move some small amount of ETH over the bridge to pay a few cents in gas. But we want to just kind of as a way to say thank you to everybody, all the communities that are important to us, give them a free one. And
it's going to be fun to see 100,000 unique addresses holding this thing in the future. That's going to be pretty wild.
Pretty wild, which is will probably happen over the course of a couple years, and it'll be fun every day to check in. Oh, what minted today? And kind of it be almost like a community thing where I don't know how many it's going to be in a few months or years, but maybe 10 or 20 get minted every day, and we can all join together and see what minted that day. It's going to be fun.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show. Special thanks to obviously Sam, Amanda, Derek, Snowfro, Jordan. I mean, this has been a great show, and congrats again on the launch.
Thanks so much.
All right, so catch 100 Proof live Fridays at 10 a.m. Pacific. Also, thanks to our live audience. Thanks to everybody for coming out.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all. And we're going to be doing more of this type of stuff. We're having more live audiences. And I promise next time we'll get the timing right so you all can show up on time. 10 a.m. Pacific, Fridays, 100 Proof. See you soon.